We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. My, how the tables have turned. Bill Haney in a brand new interview. To me, it sounds like he's singing a different tune regarding his son, Devin Haney, his fighting style. In this video, your boy Ego, I will break it down. Don't you worry. I got him. So Bill Haney of Devin Haney Promotions, father, trainer, manager of Devin Haney, he did a brand new interview with the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. And in it, he says a couple things that kind of caught my ear. And that's why I'm making this video. Make sure you, if you like it, subscribe to the channel for all that good stuff. Boxing news 24/7. Like I said, I got you. So what I noticed is Bill Haney seems to be changing his tune a bit in his brand new interview with Helwani. And before I go any further, I'm going to have you guys listen to it because I know what I'm saying is true, but you got to feel me. And I want you to hear it yourself. Roll the clip.
Conor Ben started late in the game. He got caught. He started late. He has no real in-depth toolbox. When you saw Conor Ben and Chris Eubank, no respect, no disrespect to them, but you saw two fighters that started late in the game. So you're not going to see dimensions to their game. So if you get two fighters that kind of know how to fight, you're in for a good fight. When you get a fighter with dimensions and a warehouse full of, an arsenal full of tools like Devin, boy, now you're going to see the science of boxing. It's called the sweet science. It's not rock 'em, sock 'em up.
I get that.
But to last in the sport and not come in last, you're going to have to know that. You're going to have to know the science. You're going to have to study it. And one thing about Devin is like I'm saying is we keep continuing to see different things at him. Oh, it was a hell of a team in Robert Garcia and the Golden Boy and Jose Ramirez and all that. But what they studied for Devin, no different than Papachenko when he studied for Devin. And on that night, we showed him something different, Ariel. You got to point that out.
100%. 100%.
And to shut out a great coach and Robert Garcia, a two-time champion, a unified champion in Ramirez, to shut those guys out and not give them an answer back to anything we're doing in that squared circle is nothing but the sweet science. And they don't want to give credit for that. So guess what? Go back to put on the dunce hat and go sit back there in the class and let me and Ariel chop this real game up.
I appreciate it and totally understand. The whole point is to hit and not get hit. I get that. But there is a balance between entertainment and that, right?
Well, depending on what you're looking at or not looking at. What they want to mislead you into believing that it's a place to run and hide. But when you're covering the sport and you're on top of it the way we are, you let them know, man, it ain't no way to place to run. And even in the octagon, who you cover that sport so beautifully,
thank you,
is it's somewhere in which that they turn their back in a way that in boxing you can't. You have to stay in front of the man. So the art is to be in front of the man, being able to hit him and not get hit.
Ego thoughts. So right off the bat, one thing I noticed is Bill Haney likes to do this, and you got to pick it up and pick up on the warning signs so you know when it's happening. But if you don't believe me, rewind the clip and picture me rolling. Rewind it, play it again, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. What Bill Haney does is he tries to put on a show almost in terms of you listen to him talking to Ariel Helwani, he's trying to butter him up, right? He's like, oh man, yeah, in the octagon, you the man in the octagon, you cover the sport so brilliantly, and he'll try to stroke your ego, no pun intended, but he'll try to stroke your ego to kind of get you on his side and almost like manipulate you. And I noticed that because you even heard in the clip, Ariel Helwani, when he's doing this, he's like, oh, thank you. You know what I mean? that's a tactic that I've noticed from Bill. You know what I mean? For me, that doesn't work because I see through it. But it looks like he's trying to domineer and kind of control and manipulate the conversation, and like, oh man, you do this boxing thing, or you know, you're a reporter. And then he'll say these things like we love the sport of boxing, so we da 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 da, you know, to try to make it sound inclusive. But to me, I look at that as a front, and he's just trying to kind of get what he wants out of the interview. And again, some people may miss it. That's on you. But I've noticed it in several interviews. Just listen to the way he talks. He's trying to like pillow talk and smooth talk the interviewer, so they're not harsh, or they let their guards down and, you know, almost like take it easy. So that's a little ego rant sidebar. Moving on. What I did notice as well is now the conversation has shifted, and it's pretty funny to me. What do I mean? What I mean is Bill Haney is now talking a whole different game when it comes to his son and fighting, right? Before, he was saying stuff like, I'm sending my son Devin to ill you, Ryan Garcia, 187, fight in the center of the ring, stand in the center of the ring and trade. He was saying these types of things where he was making it like Devin Haney was the Terminator, Rambo, like Commando, full of ammo, right? And he was making it sound like Devin is this like come forward Terminator-esque monster, then that's how he fights. Now, if you listen to this Ariel Helwani, he talking a whole different game. He talking about, oh man, it's a sweet science, the art of hit and don't get hit. Because, so for me, that's not a good sign, because your whole steez has changed. What happened to stand in the center of the ring and trade, right? What happened to I'm sending my son out to execute you and all this type of stuff? Now you've completely went away from that, and now you're sounding real preachy. Oh, you got to preserve the fighter, and the less punishment you take. Now you're singing a whole different tune than what you guys were saying before. And I hope you guys picked up on that. If not, rewind it and listen to it again. But that's the first thing I noticed, is you went away from the previous quote unquote tough talk about Devin's style after the Ryan Garcia fight. You know what I mean? And you understand why, because of the Ryan fight and then the Jose Ramirez fight. People are like, yo, he didn't want to engage. Eddie Hearn's like, he looked petrified. He looked like he didn't want to commit. You know, he was fighting like a hare, a rabbit. You know what I mean? Things like that. So now Bill is trying to, again, control the narrative, manipulate the situation. And, you know, now he's preachy about the sweet science and hit and don't get hit. But here's the thing. Boxing is a sport of hit and don't get hit, right? But some of these more recent fighters, new generation fighters, Shakur and Devin, they are getting criticism, rightfully so, because you're omitting a significant portion of that old adage, right? And that's the hit and don't get hit part. Yeah, it is. So, for example, it's more impressive when you're James Toney, Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker, where you're in the line of fire and these bullets, not bullets for real, but, you know, I'm saying metaphorically, these metaphoric bullets, aka punches in bunches, are whizzing by you. Like the person in the shootout that is running for cover and then dipping and dodging and ducking by a car, shooting, bop, 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 then running up more and encroaching, and he keeps having to like take cover, shoot, take cover. That is far more impressive because you're in the line of fire, as opposed to a person who just went somewhere and hid, or they went on a rooftop and then they're not engaging in the actual shootout. You guys get me? I'm the king of analogies, so I feel like that's a pretty good one. That's what's changed in the boxing. James Toney is in the shootout. Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker, they were in the shootout. So defensively, they impressed a lot of people because they were right there where it could have got chippy, but their defense was so elite that they were able to get out of trouble whilst throwing vicious offensive shots as well. That is what is missing in this modern generation of boxing, right? Where you got people who they'll have a portion of it and then they'll like kind of label it great defense. But to me, great defense is not merely being in the ring, hesitant, not engaging, and then saying I got good defense. And that's how a lot of these newer fighters, their defense is set up. Where Shakur Stevenson, Edwin De Los Santos, he's more risk management and distance control than it is pure defense, right? Same thing with Devin versus Jose Ramirez. Yeah, of course, an older, worn out, shop worn Jose Ramirez, who has slower feet than Devin and is older, been through probably more wars and more punishment. Yeah, it's going to be hard for him to corner Devin Haney because he doesn't have the legs. He's, like I said, he's been through wars. He's older. He just doesn't have that type of style, right? So that's that particular fight. You know what I mean? But I can't say that that is a defensive masterclass because you, if anything, you're just controlling the distance, which again, you could say is half the battle, but the rest of it is, what are you going to do with that? You know what I mean? It's like somebody who did all these steps, made all these maneuvers to get out the way of the smoke or the heat, right? Then what? Then what? You know what I mean? Because the real fighters of yesteryear, it wasn't based on solely moving around and all that. It was moving around with the purpose, getting in position, and you always had offense on your mind, not just defense. So I can't really call what a lot of these new fighters are doing is like elite defense. You're just controlling distance, and you're not making, like Floyd is a great example that most people have watched the Floyd fight at this point. Floyd would make you miss and make you pay. That is elite, because there's shots that Canelo Alvarez, Marcos Maidana, shots that Oscar De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, all these guys were shooting their shot and barely missing with their attack. So that becomes, for me, being a lifelong boxing head, that becomes more impressive than somebody who's kind of non-committal, right? Hesitant to throw. That's why people are saying like, oh, Devin ran and Shakur ran and stuff like that, because you're not making the most of it. You know what I mean? You're not making the most of it, especially like a Devin versus Ramirez. The times where Devin would let his hands go, he had success, but it didn't look like he had the confidence to drive and push Jose Ramirez back. He was so concerned with not getting memed and turned into a meme, or getting caught or dropped or hurt with the left hook, that he fought very timid. And now you hear Bill Haney, he doing these interviews, and Bill Haney is like, yeah, the sweet science. Yeah, it's all about the sweet science. But a fight or two ago, that's not what you was on. That's the problem. The fighter two, you was like, you like Adrian Broner, I'm sending my son to go get you, right? You had the Haneyacks content creators who were running with all this stuff that the Haneys were putting out. Ryan standing in the center of the ring. Remember, they even said, see, the best, one of my best attributes, my memory. I got a great memory, right? And I don't forget. I don't really forget these things. And it comes easy to me. So it's one of the many things that makes me the best in the business, and it's not even close. Because if you said it and I heard it, I don't forget it. I remember what you said. So who remembers when the Haneys, they were saying stuff like, Ryan Garcia, this is before the Ryan fight. Ryan Garcia, how much you want to bet? What if I knock you out in the first round? Right? Who remembers that? Who remembers the Haneys was like, and then Ryan was like, all right, come on, bro. You're going to knock me out in the first round? Get real. And he's like, do you promise to retire if I knock you out in the first round? And I'm like, when I was watching that in real time, I'm like, who are these people? When has Devin Haney ever been known as a first round knockout artist? This is what I'm saying. Like, I know this is a crazy comparison that Haneyacks will not like, but Devin almost became Ronda Rousey, right? Here's why. And I know some people are like, what do you mean? Because I truly believe that Ronda Rousey, she started making more money. She became more popular and let that stuff get to her head to the point where she started thinking in the octagon she was someone that she really wasn't. That's what I truly believe, right? So what do I mean? Ronda Rousey exceeds expectations and excels in judo. So grabbing issues and the arm bar, all that's her alley. That's the sweet spot, right? But then if you look at her fights with like Betch Correa and all that, she started trying to chunk them and like she was a street fighter, like she's Alex Pereira or somebody. You know what I mean? Like she was this striker, stand-up person. And they was putting her on Ring Magazine saying she conquered MMA. Will she conquer boxing? Then people at the time, I know it sounds crazy now because you see what happened to Ronda Rousey. At the time, people were saying she could beat Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match or something, or a fight or whatever. And it was just like, it was getting out of control. And obviously the Holly Holm head kick, then Amanda Nunes, and then now people don't even look at Ronda Rousey as what they looked at her before. Like she had the halo effect. That's what it's called, the halo effect. Before, she could do no wrong, and that's because she was on top until she kind of got ahead of herself. That is kind of Devin Haney, right? Devin Haney, everybody's messing with the journey, making some good headway, good moves, but then somewhere along the lines, you changed. And it seemed like you started feeling yourself too much. You cut certain people out of your circle and went on this and probably made money. And then I really feel like the Haneys got to a point where they start feeling they don't need certain people or they better than certain people kind of thing. And then that's when it spiraled out of control. Because again, why would Devin Haney have told Ryan Garcia to stand in the center of the ring? Why would they be doing bets and trying to do bets that they'll knock out Ryan Garcia in the first round? Like, come on, bro. Who has Devin Haney knocked out in the first round? He fought all them fights in Mexico and wasn't knocking all them out in one round. So why would you really bet with Ryan that you're going to knock him out in the first round? So again, it's a kind of a fall from grace to see Devin Haney in the de-evolution, right, of Devin Haney in his style. It's humbling and it's a reality check. Whoever you thought you were then It's like Ryan Garcia fight or whatever, it made you take a hard step back and pump your brakes, basically, because now it's about the sweet science. And this is what Bill Haney does, people. This is what Bill Haney does, where he'll have like a certain mission, and then when the mission fails, then he'll try to pivot to something totally different. And you're like, wait, what about this thing you said? Like, for example, you weren't really hearing all this pro-black stuff